So what's up, Natasha? How are you?
I'm good, not too bad. Chugging on as I can, I guess. What about you?
Yeah, all good, as you're saying. Looking forward to getting back training and the likes. So I think
Good, yeah.
we're on the back end of it really now at this stage, which which is ideal.
Hopefully. It seems like Scotland's like behind everyone else though.
Is it? Like, have you started coming out of the restrictions and stuff?
Well, we're still technically in phase one, and I think we kind of find out on Thursday if we're going to head into phase two or not. But England are definitely ahead of us. They're like, they can do a lot more than what we can do. I think technically at the minute we can take like one PT outside, but we can only use one a day. So we're literally allowed to see one household a day. Whereas I think down south they can have like as many as they want back to back, and they can do little mini like classes of 6 or something outside. But we're not there yet.
Yeah, I think our classes. I think we could do classes of 6 outside, but the last week hasn't been ideal to do anything outside.
It's mad as well though. How do you organize classes of 6 when you've got a club of like God knows how many as well? It's crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of impossible to do. How have you found the online classes?
Not bad, to be fair. Like, I'm kind of one of these people who can like train away on their own. Like, I don't really need, like, obviously for sparring and stuff, but like I don't really need any motivation to do anything. I've always been very motivated myself, sort of thing. I think like people, because you've obviously got two types of people, right, when train, like people who will stand in a line and they'll bang out technique class, and you know they'll thrive off it, sort of thing, and they'll get a buzz. And then you get those people who just can't be asked with technique, and they just want to spar. And I think the people obviously who want to spar all the time have kind of struggled with the online stuff, and then the other people have kind of got on not too bad. But Wolfpack as a whole have been really good. We've kind of come up with this kind of like league for the kids and stuff as well, with the adults if they want to do it. So basically we have like a weekly timetable, and we have so many like Zoom classes. We've got like pre-recorded like ab workouts and all that sort of stuff, and then when they do it, if they record it and post it onto like our private group, they get a certain amount of points for it. And then basically at the end of lockdown, the reward is a Nintendo Switch Lite. So we've got loads of kiddies and stuff obviously wanting their Nintendo Switch sort of thing, and it's kind of like kept the kind of morale, and it's kind of like a mini competition as well. Obviously people are struggling without the competition sort of thing, so I think it's been a little sort of light at the end of the tunnel, I guess, which is quite good. So whatever keeps them motivated, right?
Yeah, I suppose that is the hardest thing, is trying to keep engagement with members, like especially when you're not seeing them every so often. So yeah, I suppose that's like maybe a cool way actually to keep them engaged and stuff.
Yeah, I think so. And it's kind of a cool little gift as well. Like we kind of when we sat down and kind of figured it out, we can't just give away like a t-shirt or a jumper. Like it actually needs to be something decent, especially when like the kiddies are like, you know, it's up to the parents, isn't it, to try and get the kiddies to keep doing it. Like it's easy enough to kind of jump off the bandwagon when everyone's like out of routine and stuff. So the prize had to be a decent prize at the end. So we've had a lot of competitive kids, shall we say, which we know already, but it's nice to kind of know they're still there.
Yeah, especially when you're asking them to do it for so long. It's like it's okay to do something for a week or two and get a t-shirt, but if you're asking somebody to do it for this stage, could be a couple of months. It's like you really
Yeah.
want to make sure you have
I'll
something.
it's fine. Yeah, I think we're on like what, week 12, week 13 now. It's crazy.
Yeah, like I remember at the start, you kind of felt like that there was like it was going to be like a snowstorm or something. Like you were going to be inside for a couple of days, and that was it.
Yeah,
Just,
yeah,
here we are, still inside, pretty much.
yeah. I think especially when they were like, you know, we'll keep looking at it every 3 weeks. I don't think we actually realized it was going to be 4 months down the line. It's mental, but hey ho.
I one thing I found though, was like the days go on forever. The days have been dragging on forever, but the weeks have been flying by.
Yeah, that's actually kind of weird way of putting it, actually. It's mental. I guess like I think as well, like because obviously everyone's out of routine, so like you don't really have your like Monday to Fridays and then like a weekend off. And I think sometimes for the first few weeks we're kind of not lazy, but just like didn't really know what to do, and we weren't in routine. We didn't like snap into it straight away, and it just felt like the whole week was like a mini weekend. It was mental. So it's kind of when we started putting structure in place, and then I changed my training program, and we were making sure we were still doing things with little Effie and stuff. And then once we got structure back in, it didn't seem so bad after that. But yeah, it was definitely the first 2-3 weeks we just didn't know what we were doing. Like nobody did. It was
Yeah,
amazing.
I think that it's nearly going to be the opposite now again, though, isn't it? It's going to like to reverse everything back to nearly to like a different routine again.
Yeah, and I think as well, like it's not even going to go back to the way it was, is it? Like it's going to have to be different moving forward, which is going to be change again. So fun times.
But so tell me a bit about yourself. Like, how did you get into kickboxing and martial arts?
Oh, you've frozen on me there.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
yeah,
Yeah, I think so.
all good. Yeah, so just how did you get started in kickboxing and martial arts? What's your own kind of background?
So I started when I was in primary school, sort of around 7 or 8 years old. And basically I was just playing with my best friend at the time, and I was supposed to be going over to her house after school because my mum and dad were working. And she actually did Kung Fu at the time. So they basically asked, like, do you mind if she comes along, just for something to do? She can watch or she can do it. It's completely up to you. So I was like, yeah, like, why not? So I followed her along, and it was literally it's like a community sports center. Like, had no mats, like completely part-time. I think it was like a Thursday night and a Saturday morning or something. And it was Ligar Kung Fu. I joined in, absolutely loved it. And then, yeah, I continued on from then. So I started with the Ligar Kung Fu. And I think maybe 2 or 3 years later is when I actually started this sort of freestyle kickboxing. My friend as well, she did kickboxing as well. So we were just together the whole way through. And then I think maybe 5 years into my training, she kind of stopped. Kind of when we hit secondary school, to be honest. But then I loved it too much. I continued on. My little sister as well, she did it at the time. So she turned 4, I think. When she turned 4 or 5, she started the Kung Fu as well, actually, but she didn't really like the Kung Fu as much. She preferred the kickboxing, which I guess as a kid, it's a lot easier, I think, freestyle kickboxing anyway, compared to traditional Kung Fu. But yeah, literally just followed a best friend along, and then that was it. So kind of lucky, actually, if you think about it.
Yeah, that's like what's kung fu like then in terms of like, is it very traditional like, or would you have kind of sparring and competition and things like that?
Yeah, like I think but the sparring and stuff was the same. Like we kind of, the competition circuit that we did at the time was WKAs. So we did the exact same competitions as like the kickboxing club were doing, sort of thing. But it is a very, very traditional art. So you have your walking techniques, your like knife defenses, all your weapons and stuff like that, all your katas. But like I literally put most of my success down to my Kung Fu foundation. I think like some of the best fighters in the world have like a very traditional background. And I think sometimes when you start with purely just your freestyle kickboxing, you kind of lose a little bit. So I definitely put it down for just a really strong, tough, like disciplined foundation as well, for sure.
Yeah. So what kind of made you then add in kickboxing? Was it just to maybe just have another sport, have another activity?
Not even that, like literally there was a kickboxing club. So I trained my Ligar Kung Fu under the late Steve Katanak, so he was my instructor. But he was part of like an umbrella club, which was Temple Martial Arts at the time. And Temple actually taught kickboxing and Kung Fu. So the kickboxing instructor, who was Robert Smith, he used to do it at the same location, but in two different nights. So I was kind of just, I wanted more, like 1 day during the week, and the Saturday morning just wasn't enough. So now that I knew my friend actually the kickboxing as well, I was like, I want to do 2 more nights, and literally just ended up crossing over. And because the sparring was the exact same, it was quite enjoyable quite quickly because there was just so many new bodies to spar. And I think as well, like having to learn all the traditional katas and all that sort of stuff in Chinese, and then going over and learning all the kicks and punches were just complete plain English. It was actually quite nice and a little bit of a fresh air as well. So yeah, it literally just because I needed more, and it was the same location, it was just perfect timing, really.
Yeah. So then did you do any other sports, or were you always just martial arts?
I did a load of sports in school, so not so much in primary school. I don't think our primary really had much going on, but when I hit secondary, I was in the athletics team, I was in the badminton team, I did basketball, like loads of cross-country stuff, just because I'd obviously trained so much when I was little in the kickboxing. It just made me super fit anyway. And I've always kind of been one of those kids that doesn't, like, one of those annoying kids that kind of just pick up everything quite quickly. So yeah, I enjoyed quite a lot, and there was never really like a night after school where I wasn't doing something or going to a certain club, sort of thing. But it kind of meant as well where like the Saturday morning was obviously like a Kung Fu class, sort of thing, and that all like the basketball games and all that sort of stuff was on at the weekend. So there was a few times where I kind of had to choose, which was, I guess, a good thing because I had so many options. But yeah, it was kind of like being pulled in a lot of directions. But I guess as a kid, you love that, right? Like, you don't care as long as you're somewhere doing something. And my parents loved it because I was out of trouble the whole time. I was doing schoolwork and then sport and then bed, schoolwork, sport, and then bed. And it was literally that all the way until Sunday, where I completely died. And then I start again on the Monday.
Yeah, I was kind of the same when we were a kid. Like, it's all different sports. There was taekwondo, it was soccer, it was like the Gaelic games, like GAA here. Like, so
Yeah.
well, all different ways. Like, there was something on every evening. Sometimes you might have to go, well, I'm training in this one, but I have a match in this one, so you have to go to the match and like that. But yeah, you strike
It
a
was
balance.
quite good as well, because a lot of the clubs would like you finish at school and then they'd only be like 45-minute clubs. So then my dad would pick me up from like basketball and take me straight to kickboxing. And it was, he was definitely a really good taxi service when I was younger, for sure.
You need that though, don't you? Like, you need the support as well.
Definitely. Even like you see it through, obviously, like we teach Wolfpack Martial Arts, and just like the kids that have the 100% support of the parents, like it just makes such a difference. Like they don't even realize. It's mad.
Yeah, it's always much like that. Oftentimes, the ones who go the furthest, like, they mightn't necessarily be the best themselves, like in terms of skills, but they have the support. Like, they have the support at home. They'll drive them to everything. Like, they're just always involved. Like, but
Oh,
sometimes the ones who are the best,
I will be
no support.
like I will be the first to tell you I was not talented. Like I did not have natural talent, for sure. Like I was just consistent. I was hardworking. And like you say, like I was just one of those people who were always there. Like I would just be at every single session. But yeah, it was when I love the quote where it says, hustle beats talent when talent doesn't hustle. Like I was not the talent in that quote. I was definitely the hustle. And yeah, a huge part of that was because my parents just took me everywhere, like literally everywhere I wanted to go. There's to every competition. Like my team, like Temple Martial Arts, when I was younger, they didn't really travel very much. There was kind of like a core of maybe like 3 or 4 fighters that would kind of just, we got permission, and the basically head coach said that like, I can't commit to the weekends every weekend. If you want to go and compete, like look after yourselves and sort of thing, but you can still represent the club. So like my dad would literally get in the car and ferry like 3 or 4 of us like up and down the countries left and right, like every second weekend, without even like thinking about it. And it literally be like, oh dad, you know, like what's the next competition? And he'd literally get online, speak to the instructor and be like, right guys, you want to go? Yeah, let's go. And we'd literally just off in the car, compete, and then come back. It was mad, actually, looking back.
You think that helped us, or like competing that regular?
Yeah, massively. I think as well, because I was like the youngest one out of the 3, so it was basically like me, and there was like maybe 3 or 4 like older guys, maybe like not like adults, like we were all still kind of young, like kids. Like maybe we would have been, I'd be like 14, I would probably have been like 14, and they would have been like maybe 18, 19. And obviously, so they were able to like look after me and kind of coach me wherever I wanted and stuff. And like the instructor was really good. When we get back, he'd like sit us down and debrief, and like my dad would just film absolutely everything, which was really good as well. But yeah, I think like a major bit of success is just getting mat time. Like there's obviously so many things you can learn in your club and your training partners and everything, but because you train with your training partners so often, you just know each other, right? You know that they're going to kick me in left stance, you know that I have to do this with that guy. But like if you're just constantly finding new competitions and different circuits, it only helps, because you've got to think on the spot. You don't know what they're doing, they don't know what you're doing. And yeah, I think a big thing is mat time, for sure.
Yeah, like, yeah, it's one thing I think now is there isn't, I don't know, I don't know what it's like for you, and especially over, like in Scotland and England and in kickboxing, but here in taekwondo, the competitions from when I would have been younger, like there was way more competitions, like we would have competed way more, and I think it was a big benefit. Like now there isn't as many opportunities to compete, which I do think is a shame. Like it does affect kids' progression.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's the exact same. Like it's actually mad, like in Scotland especially, like especially points. I feel like points is like a dying sport in Scotland. Like it's crazy. So there's only like maybe like a couple of WK events. I think there's like an ICO or something like. There's really like a small amount in Scotland. So like the majority of the competitions for Wolfpack, we have to travel. So if we're not in England, we're in Austria or in Ireland or whatever. Like we actually only compete in Scotland maybe twice a year max, which is crazy. Whereas like when I was younger, like yeah, like I said, I was every second weekend, or I was like driving down to like the top of England and stuff. And I think not like where organizations have tried to keep fighters to themselves and not let fighters cross over. I think it's kind of bitten a few fighters in the ass, which is a shame, because like when I was younger, we didn't see organizations as as organizations. It was just like, when's the next competition and where is it? And I think that's a huge part in today, which is a shame. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you have been more? Would you have been more points or like contact when you were younger? Or?
So I was plainly points. I actually did points and I did kata. I literally think I competed in kata in a couple of worlds, realized I didn't enjoy it that much. I wasn't really good at it. And then I was like, no, I'm going to just spar. Sparring's the fun bit. But yeah, it was purely points. And literally my first light contact fight was ridiculous looking back. It was at the WKA's, the World Championships in Ireland. I think it was 2014, I think. Kilkenny maybe. And there was literally no one in the, I think it was like under 40 kilos spot for the girls. There was just no one there. No one like went and qualified. So the head coach was like, do you want to just jump in like while you're here? And I was like, yeah, why not? Never trained like contact in my life, like never competed. Mental. So I went on, and I think I was against someone from Turkey, and she just absolutely battered me up and down. Like, it was the worst experience of like contact you could ever possibly have. I think I was crying my eyes out from like 10 seconds in all the way to the end. But I see, to be fair, it was like a really bad, like traumatic experience for like a 14-year-old or however old I was. But it was kind of like open your eyes to like a new respect as well, because you just think, oh, they're just brawling or whatever. But like Dad's like, well, why don't you, like, I sat down with my instructor when I came back, and he was like, it's only going to help your points. Like, cross training and light contact's only going to help your points. It won't help like your fast switch and your timing and your distance and stuff, but the ability to realize that like you can take a shot a little bit more, or you're not so scared of like a counter side kick because you know it's not going to half you or whatever. It's just going to toughen you up a little bit. So my instructor was like, I think we should start cross training. And then I kind of, when I came back from there, that's when I kind of got into the light contact a little bit more. But yeah, absolute worst first experience of my life. I don't wish that on anyone.
But how did the points go at that tournament though?
Not bad, to be fair. I didn't medal. Honestly, I did not medal in anything seriously until I was maybe 16 years old. Honestly, I was bad for a long time. And like, see, to be fair, hats off to my dad, because we'd literally go obviously traveling everywhere, and like I wasn't consistently medaling. So he'd, you know, like we'd go all the way down to England, I'd lose like first, second round, and then we'd drive all the way back up, and then 2 weeks later I'd drive like to the top of Scotland. Like, it wouldn't put him off. And I think that sometimes just that unwavering, like, it doesn't matter, it's mat time, and just like as a parent understanding that, I think is a very good thing as well.
Yeah. Did your dad, did you find he started to enjoy the sport himself, or just being a spectator and watching? Like, he was enjoying going to the events as much as you were?
More than me, I swear, more than me. But I think it's kind of like, me and my dad are very similar. We're very stubborn. We clash a lot. And don't get me wrong, I owe a lot of my kickboxing career to him. But like, there's just a line, because he'd never done martial arts in his life. And you know, when you have a parent and they've watched so much and they think they know it more than you, so they can coach. There's like, I don't know how to explain it, but like, I almost feel like he thought he knew because he traveled so much with me. But for me, I was just a daughter seeing him as a dad. So he was not going to sit there and tell me like what I can and can't do, or like what I should have done, sort of thing. So like, it would be a different car journey if it was a successful competition, or if it was like a failure competition sort of thing. It was quite a funny like drive up to Scotland, I tell you. But no, fun and games.
My dad was always, I suppose, something similar. Was always there, but I think kind of for me it kind of helped at the start, because especially like with more like the traditional stuff, like the pattern of the katas and stuff, my dad would sit down the back of the class and he'd watch my instructor, what he was saying, but then we go home, we'd practice. We spent 30 minutes at home practicing, trying to get it the exact same way that way the coach had said in the class. So I think that kind of helped. But like that all the time, it was if it was a good competition, there was a different conversation to when it wasn't a good competition.
Yeah, oh definitely. It's like, I can see, looking back though, I laugh because it's such like a similar, and this is going to sound really weird, but it's got a similar relationship to me and Kev. So like, our, obviously, like, me competitor Kev coach relationships obviously works very well, but see, Kev being the competitor and me being the coach, that does not work. Like, he is the worst student in the world, I tell you. See, if I'm trying to coach him, he literally just doesn't listen. Like, literally, think of the worst. Think of, like, teaching a class and you're like telling the student over and over again like what they're doing wrong, or you know, what they need to do. He just won't have it. Like, it's actually mental how it works so well one way and so completely opposite the other way.
Yeah. But do you think that's because, what do you think that is? Do you think it's maybe more so that like he sees himself as always the coach and then you're always the competitor, and like
I
you
don't know. Like,
fall into those roles, but then it's reversed, it's like maybe not
I
so
don't
much.
know. I honestly think it's more just like, I don't think he, oh, you know what? I don't even know. I think it's like a character, hands down the best coach that I have ever had. Like, obviously, you know, you can say I'm saying it, whatever, but I've had a few coaches over the years, and he is one of those things, and he thinks out of the box and stuff. But I don't know. I think he's been in a coaching role so long, maybe, that he's forgotten how to be a student. And I'm not mean that in a negative way, because he's like the first thing to be like, we've turned around and been like, right, Kev, the body jab is a thing in WAKO points. Like, we need to accept this, and as a club, else we're not going to do anything. And he's like, right, okay, you're going to sit down and you'll learn and you'll kind of process it and stuff. So he's really good that way. But I don't know what it is. Like, he just literally, I don't even know if it's like from me. Honestly, I think it may be like the wife thing. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm just nagging him. Who knows?
I'm sure he'll let you know when he hears it.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, Kev.
Now, what was the first WACOs you would have went to then? First WACOs, Worlds or Europeans?
So the first WACOs I did as a junior in 2008. I think it was in Italy, in Naples. So yeah, I think it was my last year as junior. But it was my first year of like properly training down south. So I moved after high school. I kind of had a gap year, and I moved down to London and trained with like Kev and all of his clubs and stuff under like Curtis Page for the GBMMA. So I was kind of like only training properly full time after then. And I think I was basically down there a few months before I flew out. Yeah, that would have been right. So yeah, I was under 65. I'm still the same weight sort of thing. And I was doing points in like contact. And it was my first real WACO's competition. Like, I'd done maybe one Irish Open before, but I'd lived on the WK circuit. So this is my first kind of real taste and kind of eye opener, to be honest. I did well. I got 2 silver medals. So I got silver in points and silver in light. But at the end of that week, like, my body was broken. Like, I've never had so many bruises and like twinges, and I just felt like I've been beat up. Like, obviously, like, of course you've been competing and stuff, but it's only one fight a day at WAKO Worlds and Europeans, right? So I'm doing like 2, one in points, one in light. And I just remember waking up like every morning and another body part hurt, and realize that you have to go through it again and again and again. Whereas like with the WKAs, like, you do your points, your whole points category in one day, and then if you're doing light, you might do that like a couple of days later. So it's the kind of my first proper experience of like having to back compete. And yeah, like, I think the light contact was like a split decision. I like lost it on the last 2 seconds, and I think on the points, I think I was maybe like 3 points down. But like, what actually really annoyed me about that was it was the same Hungarian girl in the points and the light contact. And that was safe. Like, I'd literally lost the light contact, and I think we had to fight like where the timetables clashed. I think we were fighting points like 45 minutes later. And I remember being like, right, that's fine. That's like contact points is my thing. Like, let's do this. It's my turn. And then losing that one, that was just a bit like, it was quite a big, I literally felt like after the second final losing, and then my body being so beat up, and this whole like new experience of WAKO, it was a bit of a kind of surreal moment where I'm like, right, well, I thought I was the top of WKAs, and now I know what I need to do to kind of to step up again, sort of thing. So although it kind of had to happen, it was still quite a brutal experience at the same time.
Have you got that win back? Did you beat her since?
I've honestly never seen the girl since. Raging.
Yeah, that's even
It
worse.
is
So they win and
so
disappear.
bad. I think she must have like finished as a junior. I don't actually think she transitioned to an adult. So yeah, raging.
Yeah. So what was your kind of first experience of the Irish Open?
So Irish Open, I think, I'm trying to think the first year I did it, my dad took me, so I was probably still young. I want to say 2007. I wasn't in the light contact, 'cause I think then there was no light contact for the kids, I think. So I was just doing the points, and I remember it was one of my first WAKO competitions, and I won the first 2 rounds, and I remember fighting this girl from Wales, and she had an axe kick that I just could not get round at all. And every time it would go up in the air, I would literally look at it and watch it as it would come down and just slap me across the face. And I think it happened maybe like twice, and then you kind of know what WAKO's like. You go down that amount of points at high level competition, and you're just not getting that back at all. And I think like my kind of category was like really, really early on in the weekend as well, so I had to like stay and watch and watch and watch, which is obviously good. Like I wouldn't prefer to watch anything else. Like the Irish Open's amazing, but at that stage I was just a bit like, oh, what is going on? Like a real kind of, I need to start my training up again. And as a club as well, I was the only one that went to that competition. It was literally just me and my dad went on our own sort of thing. So it was a bit of a shit, like we need to sort something out, and we need to a little bit more of a support network around us. I think was kind of the first time I probably felt that kind of way.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
how many times have you won the Irish Open since then, though?
I've won the Irish Open 8 times, so 4 times before Effie and 4 times after. So the last 2 years we did only light contact, because since Effie was born, I found it a lot easier to train light contact than I do points. I just think you could do so much more towards light contact on your own, whereas I think with points you just have to get your drills in, you have to get your sparring in and stuff, whereas I think with the light contact you kind of get away with just more running, more bag work and stuff like that. So with Effie obviously growing up, and it's been a little bit harder, childcare and obviously self-employed and stuff, so we decided to stick to just doing the light contact at the Irish Open for the first year after Effie was born. But it was weird, like when I was pregnant, I was obviously really lucky, and I was training the whole way through pregnancy, but obviously where I wasn't as intensely training and sparring, I'd lost quite a lot of muscle mass. So when I came back from Effie, I was actually sitting a lot lighter than what I was before. Usually I'd kind of sit around sort of 67, and then I'd kind of drop down to 65, or I'd drop way down to 60 for full contact. But after FV, I obviously lost all the sort of baby weight, and I was naturally sitting at 65 anyway, 64, 65. So we were kind of like, well, why don't we try and get down to 60? Like, new challenge. I haven't fought any of the fighters, because I kind of find in the girls, whoever fights at 55 will go up to 60. But 60s don't really go up. So it's kind of like 55 and 60 fighters, and then you get like 65 and 70 fighters, and they don't really cross over. It's kind of weird. So I thought, like, why don't we just go down and we'll try and find if we can, fight something new challenge sort of thing. And I don't think I'd literally hit 60 kilos since I was about 15 years old, like so young. So like, yeah, why not? Let's do it. And I literally weighed in, I think it was like 60.2, like bang on basically. And it was good, but it was weird because like I'd obviously never fought so light at that weight at light contact, and obviously weighed in, rehydrated and stuff. And see, when it came to actually fighting people at 60, it felt like, it sounds so bad, but it honestly felt like I was fighting children. Like, it was just such a different weight class, and being used to fighting 65 and fighting up to 70, going like down to fight at 60, I honestly felt like I was just so much stronger and like taller at that weight as well. So yeah, first she was born in 2018, so 2019 I won 60 and 65, and then this year I won 65 and 70. Back up. I made it once and I was like, I've done, that's fine, we don't need to do that again.
And you're back competing in points and continuous now as well, isn't that, is that right?
Yeah. So I did the Bristol Open, I did won points there, and then Athens Challenge this year as well. I was in kick light as well, so I changed things up.
Yeah. How did you find the kick light?
I actually really enjoy it. It's actually really funny. I don't know, it's one of these ones where like the first time I decided to do it was like an Austrian Classics a few years ago before Effie, and it was kind of one of those things like, well, we just do it because we're here, and because the way it works, the light contact and the kick light are on one day, and then the points and the teams and everything are on another day. So we were there for the light contact anyway, and Kev was like, well, we just jump in, because we always muck around at the club like with a bit of low kick and stuff anyway, like just for laughs. So we're like, yeah, why not? Like, how hard can it be, sort of thing. And we literally jumped in, and I think there was like 4 girls in my section, like really quiet section. And I think it was like Poland, Italy, Ukraine, like just like Eastern European countries, and I stepped on the mat, and it was almost like fighting full contact again. They were just like very square on, very ploddy, and I felt like where like my points training and stuff was really good, and I was able to like go in, go out, and kind of hit and move and stuff. But once they landed a kick, you felt the kick. So like one leg kick, I was literally like, right, okay, that's why I'm moving. That's why I'm running around you as fast as I can. But no, it was really good. I ended up doing it in the Austrian Classics, and then I decided to do it at the World Championships in Serbia in 2015 for the first time. But that was a bit... I got a bronze medal there. I lost in the semi-finals to an Italian girl who actually went on to win it. And it was, I was raging. It was literally on the buzzer. So, you know, when you're at WAKO and it's going back and forth and we were drawing and the judge has to like decide, like one judge had to click like which way to go, and he clicked the other girl, and I was, I've never been so close in my life. And I reckon if I got past her, then the final would have been easier. Like that was almost like the final. That was the one to beat sort of thing. But it was good fun. I did points all my life, and obviously did like contact, and the only reason we kind of got into full contact was because we were kind of getting a little bit bored and just wanted to change training up, and that was pretty much what kick light was about as well, to be honest.
Yeah, but do you think you're going to stick with kick light? Do you think you're going to give it a bit more time?
I see, to be honest, even when I decided, because I did kick light in Athens this year, and we just don't train it. We don't change our training at all. Like, I honestly believe you don't need anything other than like your points and your like contact training. Like, we never specifically go out and be like, right guys, we're going to condition our legs today, because that's not really how I fight. Like, I refuse to take a kick on the leg, and like, yeah, you know, you need to be able to, you're obviously going to get caught at some point in the fight, but we don't really train specific kick light drills, and till now it's worked. So I think, yeah, like, I don't think we change our training too much. But yeah, literally just sticking points foundation in. I'll still be kicking legs, but it's like funny, like Kev will just try and get me to do like the craziest things in kick light. Like he'll try and get me to do still do like a double round kick, but like one to the leg and one to the head, and like just mad stuff, because that's how Kev thinks. So I feel like that's kind of where our success has kind of come from though, because we've had such a light-hearted attitude about it, and kind of seen it as a bit of fun rather than like, right, we're going to take up a different discipline and change your training and stuff like that. So it's been fun.
Yeah, I suppose like that, like you said, going back to what we said before, is it's more mat time, really, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And especially in Athens, most of the girls were doing light contact and kick light, so it was the same girls in both, to be honest. So why not?
So like, how many world titles then do you have? How many WAKO world titles?
WAKO World titles, I have 2 WAKO World, 1 in points, 1 in light, and then I've got the WAKO Pro in points as well. So I've got 7 WKA Worlds and then 3 WAKO Worlds.
And then you haven't managed to win? Have you won the 2 of them in the same year?
Yes, I did that in 2015. I did the points in the light in the same year, and then I did the pro in 2016, the year after.
Yeah, I always think that's a savage achievement to win 2 events, because like you said, you just get beat up throughout the days.
Yeah.
Like, so to be able to and like, I know like Elijah was on and he managed to win 3 events across the week, which is like that. It's savage to be able to win a couple of events and keep that going and not to be beat up too much.
I think it's just pure mentality though. See, at that stage, like, just to be able to get up like halfway through the week and be like, right, who's next? Like, what time am I on? Like, just not even think about it, sort of thing. Like, just acknowledging that you're going to be hurt, you're fighting for the week, and if you're fighting for the week, that's good, because you've got through the week, sort of thing. You've got through the rounds. So I think, yeah, like, it's pure mentality. And I think the difference from doing the double in 2015 and then back at the juniors and doing it for the first time was just, I didn't know what I was doing back then, and I didn't understand. I literally didn't know until I got to the competition that we only had 1 fight per day. Like, I was just so out of the loop. So when it comes to try and do the double again in 2015 sort of thing, I was ready. I knew exactly who was in my category. I had like a fight camp. I'd already been fighting these seniors for however many years before. And I think I was just so mentally ready, whereas the other one was just a hurdle, I guess, I had to go over.
Yeah, but well, like you mentioned already, like I have an FE and training through pregnancy. Like something you see a lot of I suppose women they to get pregnant, to have a baby, and they step away from the sport completely. But you actually, from what I understand, came back pretty much as fast as you could, nearly.
It wasn't even intended like that. Like, I think everyone kind of asked, like, why did you have Effie when you did, sort of thing. And I think we weren't like stringently trying or anything, but I think me and Kev were both kind of at a stage where I ticked off WAKO Worlds, I ticked off WAKO Pro World, and I would have been okay to stop. Like, my kind of goals at that time, like, were ticked, and I wouldn't have like regretted anything if I didn't go back. But then saying that, I kind of, obviously, like I said, I was really lucky through my pregnancy. I trained all the way through. I was still hitting pads. I was going on uphill walks or whatever you can do when you're 9 months pregnant, sort of thing. I was doing what I could, and I didn't have any sickness. I literally think I worked out on the Wednesday and I gave birth on the Friday. Like, that's how really, really lucky I was, sort of thing. And then the first 2 or 3 weeks were just utter madness. Like, I don't think you can ever be ready for that part. And I think kind of what made it worse as well, like, I gave birth literally 2 weeks before the British Championships, so all the guys were going down to the British, like, and of course Kev had to go down to the British. So I was up in Scotland, like, with this ball of squidge that I thought I could break at any moment. I like was calling my sister, like, come through, I don't know what to do, sort of thing. So yeah, the first 2 or 3 weeks were absolute madness. And then I think when obviously Kev had to go back to work quite early because we're self-employed, so you know, we can't take our time with this stuff. And I think it was just like lonely to start off with, like, because obviously she was so small, so she wasn't really giving me anything back. Like, she wasn't talking, we weren't having conversations. So I started like bringing her into the club, and obviously everyone wanted to meet her anyway. And then when she was so small, like, she just used to sleep like 85% of the time. So I got to the point where I'd go to the club and I'd just put her in the corner and she'd sleep in her little cot thing, and then I would just train on the mats. Obviously nothing mad like when it first kind of started, but I think where I just needed my like training outlet. It's all I've been doing. I started in primary, and I've always trained in something and had like a training schedule. And because I was so lucky and managed to like uphold some sort of training schedule all the way through pregnancy, I'd never before that moment had a point in my life where I couldn't. And this was the kind of the first time where I couldn't do what I wanted. And so yeah, kind of getting back to like a bit of normality, I kind of sat down with Kev and be like, this is where I am. I don't know what I want to do. I need a goal. I've always had a goal, be it a competition, a fight camp, or a person I need to beat. Like, I've always had something. And he was like, well, why don't we get you a fight then? Like, we won't like aim for the WAKO Worlds or anything. Why don't we get you like a full contact fight? We can do like a proper full contact weight cut sort of thing like you used to do, and then we'll go from there. And I was like, I'm not cutting to 60. Like, there's no way I'm cutting to 60 straight away. And he was like, well, why don't we just do it at your normal weight? We'll do it at 65. We'll put the feelers out and we'll see if there's anyone that kind of comes forward. And luckily enough, there was a German club that said, like, we've got a fighter for you. She's like on the up. I think she was a little bit younger. She was like 22 or something. And she's game. I think she was like about to enroll in the police academy or something in Germany, and she wanted one last fight while she was training, sort of thing. So we were like, yeah, like 100% do it. So Kev like booked the flights, and we were like, right, well, now I've got no choice. I need to sort my life out and drop this baby weight, sort of thing. So I think there was maybe 1 or 2 like mini little Scottish competitions, like literally like little like 3 mats in a hall sort of thing, like mini that we usually take the kids to and stuff. And I was like, right, well, I'll try and jump on that, get a little bit of mat time, sort of thing. Didn't do much sparring to start off with, because obviously it's my first pregnancy. Like, I didn't know how my body would react. I knew I was still healing and stuff, so it was a lot of listening to my body. But yeah, like, that's the structure that I needed that goal. And I dropped the weight. I dropped 20.7 kilos in, I want to say like 17 weeks. So I got down to 65, but it was quite good. Like, because normally where I'd like train and then cut a bit of water weight or whatever, I couldn't do that because I was breastfeeding Effie like the whole way through. So if I cut water, like, I couldn't feed her. So I needed to properly like get down to the actual weight and like not hover above and then drop down, sort of thing. So it was good in a way because it kind of like helped me learn more about my body and like what I've always been really good at weight cuts and stuff in the past, but I felt like it allowed me to learn a little bit more what I can and can't do with my body, which was quite cool as well. But yeah, 20.7 kilos. I won the fight. It wasn't pretty. It was not a pretty fight, but I grinded it out and got the win. And yeah, it kind of put me back on track from there, basically. And that's what kind of gave me the bug. We didn't jump into everything, I think, as well, like, because Effie, like, she's a wild child, right? She's so unpredictable, like babies are. So there'd be certain times where like she wouldn't be sleeping, and then that means that I just couldn't train, so it'd have to be so flexible. But then even with competitions, like we've literally taken her to every single competition that we've gone to, sort of thing. And I've been so lucky with my team because they've been so good. Like I kind of like be a mum for the first part of the day, and then I'll figure out where my category's on, and then I'll offload it to some parent, and they'll look after her while I can warm up, and then I'll compete, and then I'll go back to being a mum or coach and stuff. And it's been a learning curve, but it's been good. It's been nice to share the experience as well when she's been there. So yeah,
Yeah.
mad but good.
You start to find it's easier to balance all the being a mom and maybe working or whatever, and being a fighter. You find that it's maybe as she gets older, it becomes a little bit easier.
So I don't know. I was trying to say this to Kev the other day as well. Like you think you're kind of getting into a routine, but where she was younger at competition, she'd sleep a lot more in the pram, so she'd be a lot less hassle. Whereas now she's like wild, like running around absolutely mental. I think actually in the Athens challenge, it was kind of like the competition was like in the middle of like a velodrome thing, so we're like down, and she literally spent the whole weekend like running up and just sliding down, and the amount of times where the security would go on the tannoy and be like, can the baby please stop sliding down the slopes, and I'm literally like, that is my child, like she's getting told off by security at 2. This is what's happening right now. But I think so. I think like where she's bonded so well with the team, like it's just a bunch of brothers and sisters, right? So the amount of times where like I've met someone at competition, they're like, oh, where's Effie? And I'm like, literally don't know. Like one of the teams got her. I know they do. I don't know where she is, but she's around here somewhere. So just having that like network of people where she'll go to many people has been very, very helpful when trying to compete and train, for sure.
I think it'll be easier when you can get her into the club and do a bit of training herself.
Oh, she's wild, honestly. Even since lockdown, to be fair, like because we obviously took some mats home so we can do like the zooms and stuff and like kettlebells and everything. And the amount of times I'll be sitting on the couch and she'll be like, "Mom, mats," and she wants me to like put the mats out, and she'll go through and get my gloves on, and she'll just start bouncing and just like blitzing, and you're like, wow, like I'm not even having to say anything, like you're doing that all by yourself. But I think that's just where like taking her everywhere, right? It's the complete norm. So I don't know. We'll see. I'll never force her to compete, but she'll definitely train for sure.
Yeah, I suppose you just get used to seeing it. You want to start and give it a go.
Yeah, I think as well, like where loads of kids, like when they start competing and stuff and being on the mats and competitions can be like quite nerve-wracking. Like that's her norm. So like if she does want to compete, like it's going to be scary.
I think yeah, it's great that that you've managed to find that kind of balance, because like you said, like so the fact that so many people just go away from the sport completely, but then like that I think it's great the fact that you came back, like, and I suppose not necessarily maybe you didn't have to come back as fast as you did, like not saying like everybody has to do that, like, you know, that's obviously
Yeah.
a great example. I think it'd be great to see, because often sometimes you see guys are with girls and have the guys step away because they're now dads and stuff. It's like, well, it's great that you show that like you can find a balance there, and you can still compete and be successful in a sport even after having a kid.
Yeah, definitely. I think as well, like obviously I was never going to completely walk away because I own Wolfpack, like with Kevin, so I was always going to be involved in some kind of way. But I think, yeah, that's really important. Like Kevin had just as much as like a whirlwind as I did, sort of thing. And especially like even before Effie, when I was going through fight camps and stuff, and you know, like because we have such a relationship between coach and competitor and husband and wife and stuff, and even that can be quite intense sometimes. So chuck a baby and like both of us having lack of sleep, like it can be mad. So yeah, hats off to Kev as well, to be fair to him.
Like, you kind of mentioned already that that like coming back so fast and having to drop some of the baby weight, that you had to really, you know, get your nutrition on point. Do you have anybody who looks after your nutrition for your weight cuts, or is that something like you've kind of studied and researched and figured out yourself?
Yeah, not really. Like we've never, me and Kev kind of fuggled it out together. Like he's not he's actually learning and doing the precision nutrition course at the minute, but he's only just enrolled in, so it's kind of something that he's always like had a knack for, and he's always researching stuff. And I think where I've had so many different weight cuts and stuff over the years, like it literally is almost the equivalent of like mat time, just weight cutting over and over again sort of thing. And you obviously do learn like pros and cons and like what weight cuts were easier and what I did differently sort of thing. So kind of just learning from weight cut to weight cut. But no, like we've never really reached out and asked for like advice or anything. I think it's just almost like sitting down and being accountable. So like realizing, right, like this is just as important as like the competing. Like if you mess your weight cut up, I remember a few years ago, one of my full contact fights, I completely messed the weight cut up. Like I was stupid. I weighed in and literally I took a bottle of like, not the fizzy Lucozade, just the still Lucozade, and a bottle of water to rehydrate afterwards. And I was literally, right, I need a bit of sugar. I felt a bit crappy. So I was just sipping on the Lucozade, but I was speaking to someone, and before I knew it, I downed the whole bottle of Lucozade, and that was it. Like I felt horrible that night. Like my tummy was in bits. I woke up this morning feeling so ill. And then I just remember the night of the fight, it was a 5-round fight because it was the British title, and I come back after the first round and I was like, Kev, like I feel so unfit, like I've literally got nothing in the tank. And I knew that couldn't be true because I'd hit 60 kilos, so I'd had to do all my runs, I had to do all my pad work, I knew I was fit, but because of that stupid down in the Lucozade after the weigh-in, like it completely messed everything up. So I think it's just like sitting down and realizing that you have to educate yourself in this stuff, because some of it is purely as important as the fighting, especially because it comes first.
Yeah, and you only know after the fact, really, isn't it? It's kind
Yeah.
of hindsight. Is because somebody else could drink that Lucozade and be fine, and it
Yeah.
could have no effect. But then somebody
Yeah.
else, like yourself, like I know even myself, I don't even drink them straight. Like I'll water it down with some, I'll put
Yeah.
some, mix some water to drink it, because otherwise it's too heavy. I could like that.
Massive.
I'll feel in bits, but like that. So and you only figured it out after trial and error, really.
Yeah. Oh, it was brutal, that whole fight as well. Like I came in and it was also in that fight as well, the ref scored a knockdown in the first round. Like I did like a side kick as they were coming in, but I'd slipped, like the canvas in the ring was just slippy because we were the last fight sort of thing. And I'd slipped, my back leg fell and I fell down, and the ref gave me a count for it. He thought I'd been sparked. And I remember looking at Kev being like, I'm fine. And like, so like that on top of the bad weight cut, I managed to somehow come away with a draw, and because I was the defending champion, I got to keep the title. But I just remember being angry at myself for drinking the Lucozade, and then being angry at the ref because if he didn't score the knockdown, I would have actually won the fight. But because that round was drawn, I didn't win it, sort of thing. But yeah, that was a bad night. And that same night as well, I think we had a coach of like 60 people from Wolfpack that drove through, and it was the worst fight I've ever had in a ring. Brutal.
So then, like in terms of like the weight cut, then would you tend to like water load, or would you just maybe like sweat it out, or would you like have carbohydrate manipulation kind of stuff? Like would you employ, kind of all of those kind of strategies?
Yeah, so usually I kind of like 2 weeks before weigh-in I start water loading. So like the first couple of days I'll maybe make sure I'm drinking sort of like 3 or 4 liters, and then I'll kind of up it to kind of 6 the week before. And then kind of as the last week goes on, I'll just casually drop my water all the way down until it's sort of like 500 mils, or I'm like sipping the day of weigh-in sort of thing. And then I'll weigh in, and then we literally have these like little electrolytes that we basically put in our water, and that's the kind of first thing that we'll kind of sip slowly before any Lucozade is ever in the picture. And then we'll kind of eat kind of gradually. And yeah, it's definitely been the other side of weigh-in that we've had to educate, rather than this actual making weight that we've had to research on, for sure.
Yeah, I found something similar as like that is as like when you could get it when the wake up was small, like the recovery after didn't make much of an impact, but then the more you
Yeah.
cut, the more that
Yeah.
after it's important. Yeah, like that. It's and I find when you're drinking, I don't know if you're the same, it could be the same, but when you're drinking, like I tend to water load and drink up on 8 liters of water, and like by after 2 or 3 days, like about the third day of that, you're kind of going, oh, this is heavy going.
Yeah.
But I've kind of found that I actually prefer that much better to when you're there at the last bit and you're going, oh my God, I'd love a little drink of water right now. It's like, don't complain when you're drinking loads of it.
You know what it is though? Like literally, even the first day. So even I think we usually do 6, and we cut it. The first cut is down to 3, and that first day, like when you know you can't have 6, you want 6. Whereas the day before, you're like, oh, I'm on 5. Like, do I really have to do 6? But as soon as you're on 3, you're like, I want 6. Like purely because you're not allowed it.
Yeah. but even like as well, then after the recovery, we have one of our coaches. He brings like he brings salt, so like he literally make up like seawater to recover.
No
Like
way.
it's like
That's
seawater.
brilliant though.
Even with some of the electrolytes are pretty much just the flavor. And we're
Yeah.
like the last time, because it was a big cut. Me and one of the guys we did a big cut. It probably wasn't the best. Actually, I kind of did it fairly. It was just a big cut. Like it wasn't that but I did it the right way, but it was just a big cut. Like I shouldn't have probably cut it as much. But like you'd be sitting there kind of going like you're in bed the night before and you're looking forward to this salty water. Like you're kind of dreaming of this salty water. But like once you've recovered, you're kind of like, I can't believe I actually like that. It's
Yeah.
it's rotten, but
It's
it's the
mad,
simple.
isn't it? No, it's all about the raspberry or the blackcurrant electrolytes for sure. I can't imagine doing just pure salt water. That's hardcore.
Yeah, thankfully like that. Yeah, we do use the electrolytes to flavor it, but most of it's still it's dirty. Like it's not it's not nice. It's not nice. Once you've recovered, it's not nice.
Yeah, I bet. That's funny.
So they like in terms of like strength and condition, and did you look after that kind of stuff yourself, or do you have anybody there?
No, like literally, Kev honestly is really good. He does all my fight camp programs, from like making sure I'm hitting the miles, strength wise, like kind of fitness wise, fight fitness wise, drills. Like he'll literally cover every single aspect. He's really good like that. I've always done my running, like no matter what. I always make sure I get my miles in. From the conditioning side, I've always kind of done like a lot of body weight stuff. So it's been quite fun. Like during lockdown, I've kind of decided that I wanted a strength goal instead of anything else. So we've been working a lot more sort of like barbell stuff, like a lot of CrossFit workouts and stuff, which I've actually been kind of like enjoying quite a lot. But yeah, like purely for the kickboxing kind of side, we'll chuck the odd like kettlebell workout and stuff in there. But no, like pure everything is in-house. Definitely in-house for sure. Especially because we have like team squad trainings every Saturday for the team if they're competing, like no matter what, literally every single Saturday we'll get together, especially because some of the team are quite spread out. So we've got people from Edinburgh, we've got some of the team are from Newcastle, we've got people from Inverness, like 3 hours north of Scotland sort of thing, but we all come together every single Saturday. So yeah, it can be a mix of like we're doing points today's we're doing like contact, now we're doing purely fitness, so we're always making sure we're ticking all the boxes, but no, purely everything comes from Kev. I love that.
Yeah, you get to just switch off and just turn up.
Yeah, like Saturday is my kind of session, so the only thing we've been struggling with Saturdays is that obviously Effie's there and no one can look after her because they're all training sort of thing, and now she kind of wants to be on the mat, like she doesn't want to be at the sideline like asleep in her pram sort of thing. So the Saturdays I've been struggling with like participating every single time, and I think that's kind of been the reason why we might have been picking and choosing like contact over points and stuff, because points is like everyone, like my main majority of training partners and stuff for points would be on the Saturday. So if I haven't been getting them all in, then that's where we've been picking and choosing bits and pieces. Whereas like stuff during the week, during the night, like if you'll be at a babysitter or like someone will be looking after her so I can get all my training in. But yeah, Saturdays I've definitely been struggling recently for sure. But it's been quite nice to shout at people at the same time.
Yeah. See, that's it. That's something. As soon as you can throw a pair of gloves on her and she can step on the mats then and throw
I
that
know.
it'll make it almost so much
She's got
easier.
some kick on her as well, I tell you. She's got some kick.
So when Kev was on the podcast, he had mentioned that you were kind of planning at one point in time to maybe go to MMA. What was kind of the thought around that?
Yeah, so it was just after I'd won the double at the WAKOs in 2015, and it was just kind of that stage where, you know, I've been competing since I was 7. Like I was way over 20 years, and I kind of just wanted something new, and we'd already done all of the disciplines in kickboxing, so it was kind of like what next. And then Kev's friend Michael Page is obviously really huge in MMA and Bellator and stuff at the moment. He was like, well, why don't you come down and train in London at London Shoot Sighters for 3 weeks and see if you enjoy it, see what you can do. My coach can have a look at you, etc. So I was like, yeah, like why not? Went down 3 weeks, hardcore training, absolutely loved it, like really, really enjoyed it. I'm never afraid to be a student again. Like if someone can teach me something, it doesn't matter if you're you know, at London Shoot Fighters in London, or you're 7, like I'll listen, like I'll learn anything. So yeah, really enjoyed being a student, getting the white belt back on, and then came up north, found a club called Higher Level under James Doolan. Really, really good club. Again, loved it. Really good, strong bunch of guys, and probably the best MMA club in Scotland for sure. But I was really struggling logistically to figure out training and still teaching at Wolfpack. So whereas the club in London, they had a lot of like during the day classes for like their pro athletes and things, whereas up here they didn't really have it. It was kind of all at night, and obviously we were still self-employed, and we were trying to open up a second school and stuff at the time, and it just really, it wasn't working out business wise, which was kind of where I was struggling to kind of fit everything in. So then eventually we kind of went, well, I was still training kickboxing like throughout this whole process at the time. Like I was still getting the training rounds in for like all the teammates and stuff. So I think at the time we were like, it was 2 weeks before Irish Open, and we were like, well, we'll just do it. Like, well, we just jump in and compete. Kev being Kev. And I was like, you know what, like, sure, why not? I was nowhere near weight. I wasn't like in a fight camp. I wasn't like hitting 65. I think I did under 70. And I think that plus 70 kilos points was first of the days, which was like, oh, even better, get it done. And I ended up winning it. Actually, I beat Anaconda from Hungary in the final, and kind of realized I still love kickboxing. Like, I'm not that bored of it. I maybe just needed a break. So then we kind of hopped back on, and it was important that I got the break. I do feel like I needed that break at the time, and I would have loved to train MMA if I could, like if I could make it work. It's not to say I can't make it work in the future. I think especially looking at like the ages of people, I think kickboxing is a lot younger girls sport. I think especially on the girls side, there's a lot of juniors and stuff coming up, whereas I think MMA, the girls who are at that level are a lot older even than what I am right now. So I'd never write it off, and I definitely enjoyed the training, but it didn't work out timing wise at that point.
Yeah. So I thought it was a good point that Kev made when he was on. That I think it's good to not treat the likes of kickboxing, even taekwondo, like any of the tatami, like not to treat them. Can you hear me? Oh.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you, but I can't see you. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me? You're kind of frozen your screen.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can't hear you, and you're frozen.
1 second.
Do you want me to come back in? Like go out and come back in?
Yeah, that might work actually.
Okay, 2 secs.
Right, there we are. But yeah, just before we kind of got cut off, was I was saying that yeah, Kev kind of I thought felt made a really good point in terms of like when he was on that, you know, that I don't think kickboxing or taekwondo or any of the tatami sports should be treated as a stepping stone sports. Like I think, you know, you can have I hadn't really fully thought of it, but I think he's really right. You can have a career. Like, there's nothing wrong with having a career. Like, just staying in your sport, having a successful career, and even if it's not successful, just having a long career. Like, you don't necessarily have to switch to MMA or anything like that.
No, I 100% agree with that. And I think a lot of people kind of see points as like the first thing. And just because like that's how I've did it, I think that I wouldn't have the success that I did if I didn't do it that way around. And I think a lot of people like starting MMA, like like as their starting point, wouldn't have the same success as if they started on tatami and got their mat time and got their competition experience and stuff and then went on to it. I think it's definitely better, and I think a lot of the top MMA fighters have done it that way around as well, whether they've wrestled it in high school or whatnot, sort of thing. So yeah, I completely agree with that. It's definitely not a stepping stone. I also think as well, like, although light contact is hard in its own right, I do think in my experience that points is harder. And I think if you were to go points and then move into light contact, you'll get a lot of success. I don't know if you could do it the other way around. I think if you started in light contact and went to points, I think people find it a lot harder. I think points is where you kind of where I got my distance and my timing. And I think if you learn those core things early on, then you can do anything, including MMA. But like you say, it's definitely not a stepping stone to that for sure.
Yeah, I think maybe points, the fact that it's maybe much more of a mix between your hands and your legs. I think that maybe it can cross over. Like, sometimes light contact can be very, if it's just what you're doing, it can be a bit more hands orientated as opposed to the legs. But I think like the points really forces you to use both, which crosses over very well, as opposed to maybe just going back the other way.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, like even on a reaction sound, like I'm not a reaction fighter by any means. Like Kev makes fun of me all the time because his reactions are actually ridiculously fast for a big guy. But I think like points kind of forces you to kind of like react a lot quicker. Whereas in like contact, like yeah, you might go down like a 1 or 2 points, but I find it quite easier to get back. Whereas if you go down 1 or 2 points in points at WAKO, especially, like that's it, like the fight's over. Like you can't chase that at a higher level, sort of thing. So it's definitely a lot more tactical, and it makes you engage your brain a lot more for sure, which is only going to grow you as a fighter, right? So win-win.
Yeah. And points can sometimes be very momentum based, like, isn't it? Like, once if somebody gets in a roll, it can be very hard to stop that. Like, I think you see that quite a bit. Is, it can be 1 point, 2
Well,
points.
that's where people were complaining, right, weren't they? Because, like you say, like you get 2 or 3 points, and then like the fighter who would be losing would like pull something like to the ref or pretend they're injured or throw a glove off or whatever, trying to disrupt that kind of momentum. And that's where kind of people were in uproar about it and asking for like rule changes and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a thinking fighter's game, right? Like a thinking fighter will always win over a fitness fighter.
Yeah.
Fact.
And do you think, would you like to see kickboxing in the Olympics? Would that be something you'd like to maybe have a go at?
Yeah, like like it's kind of I've been very mixed in this in the past, and yeah, of course it would be great to be in the Olympics, but I don't really see the Olympics as I don't see this as a stepping stone to the Olympics either. And I think even if it wasn't in the Olympics, like that's okay too. I think if it was, then sure. I think we're a lot further away than people think we are, and I think points especially is even further away than people think we are, sort of thing. So it's definitely not going to be in my sort of kickboxing career, and I feel like it would be lucky if it's in Effie's, if I'm being honest, but it would be a really good thing for the sport. But I just can't imagine all the organizers of or the associations getting together for that common goal, because it's so money ridden, right? And you can't argue with that.
Yeah, like, obviously taekwondo is in the Olympics, but not the style of taekwondo that I would be involved in. Yeah, like I like that. I'd love to go to I'd love to be at the Olympics and like experience that. I think it'd be I think it's cool to say you were an Olympian, but it's kind of something
Mm-hmm.
I just accepted that in my sport is probably not going to happen unless I maybe transition over. But I suppose it's kind of the same for yourself, really.
Do you get many like people transitioning over from like the 2 different styles of taekwondo for that reason, do you think?
We don't have in Ireland. We don't have many people crossing over at all. It's kind of there's maybe I think there's about 5 WT clubs, like compared to the amount
Okay.
of ITF clubs. So like not many people cross over. Um, it's it's like, I think it's a bit better. I think the crossover is a bit better in England or Scotland. GB, I suppose. Like I think they open up their kind of selection process a bit much better than we do here. I think like
Yeah.
if you kind of have to have came from a WT club to get on the Irish WT team, and
Okay.
you know, I
Yeah, I
think it's
know like the so they've got it's like a fighting chance sort of thing, and it's basically like days where like martial artists from any sort of background can go and trial it sort of thing, and it's like specifically open for people outside of the association sort of thing, like this style. So it's quite good that way, I guess, because there has been quite a few kickboxers actually that have left kickboxing purely to get onto the taekwondo team, and they have done it successfully. So it's obviously good foundation what they're doing here, which is quite nice.
yeah. Like Tony Stevenson has been on, and he would have done
That's
it. And
right.
Shannon Ryan as well has been on. She would have been with them for a bit, so that works. So I've had people on like that from kickboxing. Have tried it. They did try something similar, I think, with here in Ireland, and some of the guys went with it. But I think kind of the response to letting other people from, they were happy enough to, they were more so happy to keep their people than let other people
Yeah.
in. I
Yeah,
think
yeah, yeah. Do you find
so.
it quite clicky?
It can be, I suppose, isn't it? It's like everybody has their own patch and their own thing, and
Yeah.
I suppose everybody sometimes think their martial art is the best and the only way. And
I
I
think
think,
that's purely why the reason why we won't get into the Olympics. So like purely because of that. And it's not like they think their martial arts is the best. They think their organization is the best. So they're not willing to combine or whatever they have to do to tick the boxes. And I think sadly that's what it'll come down to, unfortunately.
yeah. Do you find in kickboxing maybe some people even get very clingy to their kind of, I suppose, event? Like some people are very clingy to points. Maybe some people are very clingy to like contact. And then like just if you have to put kickboxing in the Olympics, like which event do you put in? And then you have all that kind of thing of, well,
Yeah.
certain people,
Oh God, yeah.
theirs is the one that should be in.
Yeah, you definitely get, especially obviously it's kind of harder to relate for me because I do them all sort of thing and I enjoy them all. My favorite is always points. Like I probably have more success in like contact and full contact, and in all honesty, I do find them easier. But I love points the best. But yeah, like you said, like how do they decide that? Like, and there's a lot of like martial arts already in there that are quite similar to like point, like a taekwondo point system, like it's scored, right? And it's quite similar to points sort of thing, or people like outside of martial arts would think it's quite similar. So yeah, I wouldn't be the one want to be the one that makes that decision for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it would be cool, I suppose, for kickboxing if it got in. I'd love to see ITA. It would be great if it got in. But like that's not gonna, I don't think it's gonna happen anytime soon, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, we'll see.
Um,
Never know.
I think I was seeing that you've started a YouTube channel. Is that correct?
Yeah, this is a project of lockdown boredom, I'm not gonna lie. But no, like I always get messages like asking, what sort of training I do, or just like pieces of advice and stuff. And I kind of like sat down and like Jess, like she's my kind of my main training partner at Wolfpack sort of thing, and she kind of stays with us while she's home from uni. She goes to uni in Aberdeen, which is like 3 hours north of Scotland sort of thing. But obviously in lockdown, like she's been home the entire time, which has been quite good. 'Cause having like a running partner, and we've kind of been tag teaming, so like we can rotate who's looking after the baby and the other two can train and stuff, so it's been quite handy that way. And we were like, well, we just like do a mini series explaining like, or just showing that what we're currently doing like in lockdown, like our day-to-day kind of plan. And we were like, we don't want to make it too serious, like we won't have it like just training, like if Effie's gone off on one, I'm filming that, like, and just all the craziness in between as well. So we're kind of we've filmed everything and we're in the kind of in the middle of editing. So we've done Monday and we're about to post Tuesday in the next day or two, and we've literally done all the way through to Sunday where we died. But it was our first kind of time almost like filming our day-to-day life, and we didn't realize actually how much stuff we do or don't do. Like there's certain days where like we're like, well, we're not doing anything today, like what are we going to film? And then there's other days being like where we kind of split up and we're in two different locations, like how do we do it sort of thing. But it's been a good little project, and it's one of those things that have just kept us from going a bit stir crazy. And then kind of answering everyone's questions at the same time. So far it's gone down quite well, and we've had positive feedback, but yeah, it's definitely been a product of lockdown for sure.
Oh, seems like it could be an interesting watch. And I thought I've probably not much stuff out like much of that stuff out there for kickboxers, is there? In terms of people filming
Not that
training.
I'm aware, really. Like, and especially as well, I think a lot of like people have asked like how I'm dealing with it with Effie and stuff as well, because I think it's almost like a preconceived kind of notion that like mums just think they can't do it because, you know, like the kids are so full on, and it's just kind of maybe breaking down those barriers and being like, yes, like I do have a wild child, but this is how we do it, and this is how we kind of split it up and stuff as well. So I think it's definitely something we'll continue. Like, it's called the Wolf and Wander. It's definitely something it will continue after lockdown. And I've even spoke about like maybe just filming like behind the scenes, like what Wolfpack do when we travel away in competitions and stuff. So like what the team get up to and bonding and like little warm-ups and stuff like that. So just all the behind the scenes stuff that isn't really like 100% official, kind of just the relaxed stuff that you don't really see. It's kind of I think a lot of people kind of see me at competitions and think I'm like 100% like in it, focused, and which obviously I am when it comes to competition, but I think people don't really see the fun like mum side of me as well. So it's been quite nice to kind of get that out there as well.
Yeah, the competition. I suppose if it's WAKO, you're competing every day, but there's sometimes in where it's competition might be one day, and you know, so that's maybe a very small part of like if you're going away for a couple of days or with the team.
Yeah.
Competition's a very small part. Like there's a lot more other stuff that goes on, and that you're up to.
100% as well. Like even just like the laughter where like, you know, like 7 of the team are dying weight cutting and we're going through an airport and nobody knows where we are. Like just like the silly little stories that you get along the way, I think is quite nice to document as well, for sure.
I think it'll be something interesting, and we'll throw the link in. I'll put the link in the description for the podcast.
Nice, thank you, amazing.
And then, which I suppose one more before we finish up is if you had to pick a favorite fighter, who would you pick? Doesn't necessarily have to be kickboxer, and it could be any sport. But if you had to pick a favorite fighter, who would you pick?
Wow. Oh, that's such a huge question. I really, really like watching John Jones MMA. I think he's just, obviously he's been a bit up and down recently, but I think like a few years ago I used to love watching him. I thought it was like a big breath of fresh air, and he was just absolutely untouchable. So yeah, he's definitely been one of my fighters I like watching for sure. But yeah, there's so many styles and disciplines and stuff. That's an absolute mad question, but yeah, I think that's my first one. John Jones is a great fighter, and Amanda Nunes as well, if we're going to go female, for sure. She's a beast.
Yeah, two definitely ones. Well, Amanda Nunes is definitely the greatest MMA women's fighter of all time. She's probably up there amongst men and women, and John Jones could be the best, you know. So yeah, John Jones, yeah, he's the way he breaks guys down is insane. Like
I think it was like the first fight when he beat Rashad Evans. Like that fight was just like little details, like when he was popping the jab and then just bringing the elbow through, just like small details make such a difference. But yeah, he's an athlete for sure.
Yeah, so it's a good pick. I don't think anybody has said John Jones yet, so it's always great when it's an original one.
Who did Trev say?
Oh God, I can't remember. I've heard so many fighters. I'll have to check back. I've heard so many that I can't remember.
Who's yours?
My favorite fighter of all time, MMA would be Georges St. Pierre.
Yes. Another traditional background as well.
Yeah. If I was to pick boxing, it's Julio Cesar Chavez is my favorite.
Nice. Too strong, to be fair.
Yeah. So that's the first time somebody's asked me my favorite as well. So there you go. So,
nice. I like good choices.
I suppose we'll leave it there. It's thanks a million for coming on. I've enjoyed the chat.
Oh, no worries. It's been great. It's literally it's a chat, isn't it? It's a conversation.
Yeah, it's great to hear the second half of the Wolfpack duo.
It's actually wild. We did like a joint one the other day with like WAKO Singapore, and they were just kind of like asking like how we make it work with like coach, fighter, husband, wife, and how it kind of like the dynamics kind of work. And it's just really funny. Like I just enjoy these kind of like interview podcasts. Like it literally is a conversation, isn't it? Like it doesn't even feel like an interview. Like you're just having a chat, which is quite nice. So I've enjoyed it. It's been good.
Yeah, so thanks to me for coming on, and hopefully we'll get back to proper training and not just outdoors with groups of 6.
Yes, God, I take that right now. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, definitely for sure.
Yeah, so stay safe and all the best.
You too. Thank you. Bye.